like to welcome you to the second part in our special series of water webinars that we, the leadership of JNF, have decided to hold during these very unique and challenging times. We feel it's a way for all of us to stay connected and for you to see that JNF has not stopped in spite of what is happening throughout the world. So I am Mark Kelman, JNF National Board Member and the Chairman of the National Water Task Force. As you all know, JNF National Fund plays a major role in Israel's water economy and has developed unique connections with key water experts in the US and in Israel. This series of 4 webinars deals with different aspects of water, including technology and desalination, the Kinneret and its influence on Israel's water supply, recycling, and wastewater management, water education, and JNF's different initiatives in all these areas. Last week, we kicked off the series with a wonderful discussion with renowned author and water expert Seth Siegel. And if you missed this session, you can find it at youtube.com/JNF Jewish National Fund. Today, we are extremely lucky to have, I consider a friend of mine. I've met and talked with him on many occasions, Dr. Clive Lipchin, and our very own Talia Tzour Avner, the Chief Israel Emissary at JNF. Our first speaker will be Dr. Lipchin, who will speak about the critical importance of the Kinneret, or the Sea of Galilee, and its status after this year's very rainy, thank God, season. Talia will discuss JNF's water initiatives and their impacts on Israel's water economy. First, let me introduce Clive. Clive currently serves as director of the Arava Institute for Environmental Studies Center for Transboundary Water Management, where he oversees research and development projects, workshops, and conferences that focus on transboundary water and environmental problems facing Israel, Jordan, and the Palestinian Authority. His specialty is in water resource management and the policy. Clive has conducted research for a number of international water agencies, such as the World Bank, European Union, and the Water Initiative Project for the Mediterranean region. Clive's research and development work has recently focused on cross-border stream restoration and wastewater management issues between Israel and the Palestinian Authority, and on integrated food, energy, and water systems for off-grid communities in Israel, Jordan, and the Palestinian Authority. Clive, a native from South Africa, has been living in Israel for over 20 years. He received a BSc degree in zoology at the University of Witwatersrand in South Africa, and a BS honors in wildlife management from the University of Pretoria, and an MS in desert ecology from the Ben Gurion University of the Negev. This webinar is going to last for 45 minutes. We'll have 30 minutes. We will hear from both of our speakers, and then we will open it up for questions and answers. So with that, Clive, the stage is yours.
Thanks, Mark, for that very nice introduction, and welcome everybody to this webinar. I suppose we should all be grateful that in the face of this crisis, the internet is still working. Otherwise, I'm not quite sure what we will be doing stuck in our homes without the ability to communicate the way that we're able to. So at least we are able to still remain engaged. So what I'm going to talk about in the next 15 minutes or so is just give you guys an update on where things stand with respect to the status of the Kinneret and how that fits in with Israel's water strategy. So I have a couple of slides that I'll pull up onto the screen now. Okay, there you go. As many of you know, Israel this winter season had one of its rainiest winter seasons in more than 10 years. And actually the last time we had this much rain was recorded in the year 2003. So 16, 17 years ago was the last time we had this much amount of rain. It's been quite unprecedented, and of course it's been very welcome. But what does this mean? What does this rainy season mean in a broader context with respect to how Israel manages water in terms of from a long-term perspective? So we want to look at this issue. This is just a map just to make sure that everybody knows what we're talking about in terms of the basic geography. So the Sea of Galilee up there in the north of Israel is the only significant source of fresh water that Israel has. The Sea of Galilee is fed by the Upper Jordan River, and then the Sea of Galilee is connected to the Dead Sea Basin via the Lower Jordan River. Both water bodies are located in the Syrian African Rift Valley, in our case the Jordan Valley, which is something like 400 meters below sea level. Since the 1960s, Israel has been managing the Sea of Galilee as its national water reservoir, and has been heavily reliant on the Sea of Galilee as a major source of potable water ever since the 60s. That has changed somewhat with the onset of desalination, which I'll also briefly touch upon. But the Kinneret, because of its importance in terms of ensuring water supply to Israel, has a very strong connection with Israelis across the spectrum. Israelis are very connected to the Kinneret, and we are always keen to understand what is the status of the Kinneret's water levels. And this is something that, for example, is published in the newspapers regularly, and everybody is always interested to see where is the Lake Kinneret these days. Is it low? Is it high? What's the status? Because the Israeli public is very keenly aware of the importance of the Sea of Galilee as a major source of our water supply. So we track the water levels literally on a daily basis, and it's important to understand how the lake is managed with respect to the levels of water. So there are three lines, so to speak, that we need to always keep in mind in terms of the status and the health of the lake. So there's the so-called upper red line, which is set at 208.8 meters below sea level. If we reach that line, the lake is basically considered to be full. If we are at the lower red line, which is set at 230.07 meters below sea level, then the lake is considered to be in one of its lowest conditions, and this triggers concern about the ability to continue to pump water out of the lake. The greatest concern is if we hit what is called the black line, which is set at 214.87 meters below sea level. If we hit the black line, the water levels are so low that it's no longer possible to pump water out of the lake without causing very problematic ecological damage to the lake in terms of water quality. So what you can see here, this was the water level in March of 2017, and the lake was really low. We were at the lower red line, and there was concern that the water levels would actually keep dropping and reach or come close to the black line. So that's where we were at the end of our winter season in 2017. This is where we are more or less today. This is the water level from December of 2019. And you can see here the water level has risen to about 211.77 meters below sea level, but quite significantly above the lower red line. Where we are today at the end of March, early April, is the sea has continued to rise, and there is a chance, although I think it's quite a low one, that we will reach the upper red line. But definitely this winter season, the lake is in really good shape in terms of the water levels. This has many impacts. Firstly, it means ecologically speaking, the lake is in good health. It is good conditions for the fishing industry around the lake, and of course, it's a major source of water now that we can that can contribute to our overall water supply. So again, just to put this into context, the way in which the lake is managed is trying to assess where the lake is in terms of different water levels. And this also helps us to understand to what level can we rely on the lake as a source of potable water for our national water supply. This is just a graphic that also puts this into context for you, where the lower red line is and where the upper red line is. And what this graphic is showing you that in January 26th of this year, the lake was at 210.41 meters below sea level, meaning that the lake is in one of its best conditions that we've seen definitely over the last 10 to 15 years. This slide is the last slide that I have, and basically this slide puts the Sea of Galilee into context with how water is managed in the country. And it's important to understand that even though we've had a wonderful rainy season and we've been blessed with a lot of water, and today if you travel all around Israel, not that you can travel, but if you have the opportunity to do so, everything is green. We're moving into spring. There are flowers everywhere. I live in the Negev, and you wouldn't think you were living in a desert. It's green wherever you go. It's sort of really unfortunate that we're not able to get out into nature as we used to do. And so we see a very lively and awakened environment. And the Sea of Galilee, the Kinneret's water level is an indication of this. But what does it really mean for the long-term context of water planning? So what you can see here in the middle, again, is the water levels of the Sea of Galilee from 2010 to 2016. And you can see firstly the variability of the water. Water levels rise and fall dependent on whether we are in a rainy season or in a dry season. But you can see over this period of time that the water levels are quite low. And over a long period of time, the water level is actually declining over time. So even though we had this rainy season, it's really not the rule, it's rather the exception. It's important to understand that the rule in Israel, being an arid country, is actually water scarcity is much more common than a water abundance. So this rainy season is a wonderful opportunity for us, but it doesn't really contribute to our long-term water security. What you see in the top is the impact on the Dead Sea, which is the other significant water body in the Jordan River system. And you can see that the water levels over time have been dropping precipitously. And this is partly because we manage the Kinneret as a reservoir, so we don't allow water to flow from the Sea of Galilee to the Dead Sea. Even today, with the Kinneret at one of its highest levels ever, opening the dam and allowing water to flow down the Jordan to the Dead Sea is unlikely to happen because of the importance of maintaining those water resources in the lake for human needs. The most important part of this graphic is the bar graph at the bottom. And what you see here is really how Israel is approaching its long-term water sustainability or its long-term water security. And that is to rely less and less and less on natural water availability and to develop non-conventional technologies for putting Israel in a more water secure situation. And this, of course, speaks mostly with respect to the development of large-scale seawater desalination. So what you can see in the lower graphic is we began desalination in 2005, and we have ramped desalination up over the last 10 years, where today we have 5 of the world's largest seawater desalination facilities. And 2005 was an interesting year because why do we begin then? Because we were coming out of one of the longest droughts that Israel had ever experienced, where in 2005, the water levels of the Sea of Galilee, of the Kinneret, were at one of their lowest levels ever. So this really precipitated Israel and Israeli decision makers to make the leap from relying only on water from nature to actually taking the initiative and producing water in a more secure and consistent manner. So what you see here specifically in terms of pumping water from the Kinneret, in 2005, we were heavily dependent on the Kinneret. And we were pumping something like 300 million cubic meters of water per year from the Kinneret. But look where we are now in the year 2016. We're pumping hardly any water from the Kinneret, only 25 million cubic meters, and that's water mostly to provide water in the vicinity of the Kinneret, like for the city of Tiberias, and see where we are in terms of desalination. We are producing around 628 million cubic meters of water for desalination, and that's allowing Israel to provide roughly 70% of our potable water from desalination. And the final word I want to say on this, and putting again the Kinneret into context, is what Israel has done and can offer as an example to other arid regions in the world is to decouple itself or to de-link itself from natural water availability and develop non-conventional water supply, whether this be desalination for our drinking water or wastewater treatment and reuse for our water for irrigation. And this decoupling, if you will, puts Israel in a relatively water secure situation as opposed to other countries that have not yet developed these levels of large-scale technologies. And the way that I look at it is like this. Water scarcity is a reality around the world. Water scarcity is growing around the world. Water scarcity is being exacerbated by climate change at the very time that water demand is growing around the world because of rising populations and growing economies. At the very same time that all of that is happening, the certainty, the dependency, the reliability of natural water is becoming more and more and more and more uncertain. So again, we had a rainy season. It was wonderful. It was great, and we are blessed. But by no means does this mean that next year we will have the same amount of water, and we may have even less, or we may even be moving into the next drought season. So natural water supply is hugely variable. There's a great sense of uncertainty and unpredictability. And you need to minimize that level of uncertainty in providing water consistently to your population. So Israel has achieved that level of certainty by investing in large-scale water technologies and infrastructure. So Israel today, in the year 2020, is in a very water secure situation, whether or not Lake Kinneret is full or Lake Kinneret is not full. We are no longer dependent on the lake as we were, for example, back in the year 2005. So that really, I think, is my closing point, is that Israel's water management position is building our water security not on hoping for a good rainy season or not, but rather taking the initiative and investing in technologies that make us more water secure. And this is something that I think other places in the world can learn from. If you think about the US Southwest, the US Southwest is still heavily dependent on nature. When it rains or it doesn't rain, water supply is dependent on the Colorado River system, for example. Mark is from Phoenix, so he knows what I'm talking about there. But Phoenix doesn't yet have other alternatives to provide it with water other than fresh water from the Colorado. So the point that Israel is offering to the world is it's simply no longer possible to simply rely on water from nature. We have to take the initiative. We have to develop these technologies. We have to find the best management approaches, the government approaches. Of course, the financial aspect of this is all very important as well. So I think at this point, I'll close, and I'm going to ask, or Talia, I think will speak next, and then we can have some time for questions and answers from everybody else that's on the call. So thank you for listening, everybody.
Thank you, Clive. So I need Clive to end the show, and then I will share my, thank you, Clive, you were great.
Thank you, thank you.
I hope this is it.
Very good.
Yeah, this is it?
Yes, now just slideshow mode.
Okay, hold on. Slideshow.
From beginning.
From beginning. Okay.
Beautiful.
So by the way, Gary, how many people we have?
Over 140.
Wonderful. So good afternoon, everyone, and good morning. And thank you for being with us. This is the second webinar, as Mark indicated, and I'm excited to share with you a phone call that I received yesterday from one of the farmers in the Arava. from Moshav Idan. He called me and he said, Tali, you're not going to believe, you know, how thankful we are for you, the Jewish National Fund. And let me tell you a story. It is clear that, you know, most of the income of the Arava farmers is coming from agriculture. And it is also clear that we couldn't have done it without you guys, the Jewish National Fund support in terms of water production. You've been supportive in the infrastructure for the agriculture in the Arava and of course the housing. You've been supportive in terms of the R&Ds in the Arava and the, you know, the impact on the growing any crops in the Arava. And you've also been very supportive in terms of water drilling, brackish water, wastewater management, etc., etc. So due to the assistance of the support of the Jewish National Fund, we were able to grow what we grow in the Arava. So listen to that. We have enough produce now to market. Yet the changes because of the coronavirus is a big damage for us, since the usual demand of the market, the hotels, the restaurants, the Machne Yehuda and the Carmel market has been reduced, and there is not so much demand as it should have been, or we planned to have. So what we are doing now, except for marketing to whoever needs it, i.e. the supermarkets in Israel, we've decided to contribute, to donate all the extras of the produce of the Arava to needed families, especially, before Pesach, before Leil Seder. So we are picking all the, peppers and eggplants and watermelons and cherry tomatoes, all the extras that we have now, and we are preparing boxes for needed families, and we're going to send them to Mitzpe Ramon and Dimona and other communities in the Negev that they said that they have needed families that need our support. So thank you. I thank you guys, whoever is on the line with us, and the farmer from Moshav Idan thanked all of us for what we have done, because they were able, not only to make some income, but also to be helpful for families in Israel in these tough days. So having said that, I'm going back for just 1 second to remind ourselves what Seth told us last week, and Clive continued this week. Oh, my battery is running low. Hold on for a second. Sorry. I'm just reminding ourselves that Israel, when the state of Israel was established, we were only 600,000 people, and the British mandate limited the Aliyah quota because they said you don't have enough water, you don't have water for more than 1 million, 2 million people to bring from outside of Israel, the land of Israel. Today, Israel supplies water to more than 12 million people, including 9 million people of Israelis, some people in the Palestinian Authority, and a quota of 50 million cubic meter every year to the state of Jordan, according to the peace treaty that we signed with them in 1994. And that with less 50% rain than what we had in 1948. We achieved that because of smart governance, because water is a national asset in Israel, because we encouraged the water technology, and also because Israel was smart enough to start the recycling of wastewater, and Israel is rated #1 in the world in recycling, with 85% of its wastewater treatment, wastewater water recycled. After Israel comes Spain with about 17% of wastewater recycled, and in the United States we recycle about 5%. Another smart idea or technology that Israel has been using for the last decade, of course, is the desalination. We built 5 desalination plants. They produce about 60% of the potable water in Israel. We do charge a reasonable money for the water that we are producing in Israel, and there's a great public awareness for the water scarcity, and that we need to pay for the water, and we need to be very careful in the water use. So that's in general the roadmap of Israel's water economy. Now, all the predictions forecast that by 2050 or 2048, if you will, when the state of Israel will be 100-year old, there will be 16 million people living in Israel. For that, we need to prepare today. We cannot wait not a year and not 2 years. We have to start thinking today as to how to increase. So how the water production has been achieved by water saving and education of the public and the public awareness, of how to, use water carefully, by wastewater reuse, and that is mainly used for the agriculture in Israel, and by desalination. And as I told you, we already have 5 desalination plants, and there are talks and conversations for the last few years about building an additional desalination plant in Aqaba, in Jordan, a collaboration between the state of Israel and Jordan. So I'm moving to my thing now, giving you the background. What is JNF's role and the initiatives in the water economy of Israel? We cannot be part of the desalination, but we can definitely be part of the reuse of the wastewater, and we can definitely be part of the education. So what have we done and what are we doing? We have built 250 water reservoirs all over Israel for kibbutzim, for moshavim, for individual farms, and we are requested now by the Water Authority, the National Water Authority of Israel, to support in building another 90 water reservoirs. And as you heard from Clive, the fact that the Kinneret is now rising doesn't mean that we don't have to continue and even enhance, whatever we're doing to produce more water, especially with the forecast of 16 million people by 2050. Rehabilitation and restoration of rivers. I think most of you have been to Israel, so the state-of-the-art example of the Beersheba River. JNF started with just cleaning the river. From that, built beautiful promenades, bridges, new neighborhoods, were built facing this magnificent park. And last year we inaugurated the largest artificial reservoir or lake within the Beersheba River that contains recycled water from the Beersheba, the city of Beersheba, water this park, as well as serve, in normal days serve the public of or the residents of the city of Beersheba by boating. There's a restaurant by the lake, etc., etc. Gorgeous, changing the image of the city and also protecting the aquifer, because when you have contaminations in the rivers, running in the rivers, the big risk is that it will penetrate the aquifer and contaminate the aquifer, and that will take hundreds of years afterwards to fix. As I said, wastewater treatment plants in the Arava, in the Negev, in the north. JNF has been very supportive. Drilling, the Shamir drilling that took place in 2008, we started to support it, saved the farmers in the northern part of Israel for the last 5 consecutive years of drought in the north. What they had over there is the water from the Shamir drilling, not from the Kinneret and not from anything else. Wetlands, we built a wetland in the Ramon Air Force Base. And as I said, education for young generation. This is crucial in achieving water independence and achieving the public awareness and understanding, and turning also the young generation into, initiators and entrepreneurs in planning and thinking on ways that we can save more water. In this education, JNF built through the years over 60 rainwater harvesting systems in elementary schools throughout the country, educating more than 90,000 kids as to how to save the water from the rain and use it for the bathrooms and use it for the agriculture, etc., etc. And the other educational program that we are supporting is the Stockholm Junior Water Prize that deals with high school kids that innovate, solutions for water scarcity for development countries. There's an international competition every year in Stockholm, and the winner, or the Israeli winner, is representing Israel in the annual Stockholm competition. R&Ds, as I said at the beginning, you cannot grow a cherry tomato or watermelon or an eggplant anywhere in an arid land and in the desert without an R&D as to what, how much water, etc., etc. So water scarcity is not over, as Clive, very nicely explained to all of us. The Kinneret is still very important as a strategic, I would say, reservoir for the state of Israel. There are areas throughout Israel that are not connected to the national water grid, and they need, more support than the others. Population will grow to 16 million people. We are in the Middle East, isolated and still surrounded by 22 Arab countries. And today, during the Corona times, more than ever, it is proved that Israel needs to be self-sufficient in food and in water supply. Israel cannot rely on any import from anywhere in the world. And even I heard, yesterday in the Israeli news that they are going to produce the inhalators and the masks and the gloves and everything that they need. They cannot, they're trying to use the Mossad for that, but the Mossad decided that they are going to produce everything in Israel. So not to talk about food and water, which are so essentials for living. We need to prepare today for future generations. And if we don't think about it today, by 2050, Israel will not have enough water. This is the end of my closing comment. If you want to hear more and learn more about Israel's water, challenges and successes, there are 3 podcasts that we posted of Clive Lipchin, Dr. Clive Lipchin, Seth Segal, and myself, and it is at jnf.org/IsraelCast. And if you want to learn more about our initiatives, you can go to jnf.org/water and not only learn, but also support our campaign in water. And with that, I'm opening the stage, Gary, Mark, for questions. Thank you.
Okay, very good. A few people have submitted questions in the chat, and Clive is prepared to address those.
Okay, thanks, Gary. So I'll see here, I'll just go in terms of the order that I see them in my chat. So the first question is about the status of the agreement regarding Jordan's supply of desalinated water in the Arava Valley. So this relates to the discussions between Israel and Jordan on developing desalination in Aqaba in Jordan, and having some of that water go to help the Jordanian population, but some of that water also coming to Israel as an additional source of water to the Arava. So this agreement was developed as part of the much larger Red Sea to Dead Sea project. What I know is that this project is still very much on the drawing board. Nothing really is moving forward. Difficult to really know why that is, but a lot of this, of course, is heavily politicized given Israel's relation with Jordan and what that means for these kinds of projects. So at the moment, this project is not moving forward. The next question is about desalination. The economics of desalination. Desalination is on the scale in which Israel is doing it is very expensive. The average capital expense today for a a large seawater desalination facilities in the vicinity of anywhere from $300 to $500 million. That's just the capital expense. We're not talking about operation or maintenance. And the only way these kinds of large projects can be financed is through public-private partnerships. So the development of desalination in Israel is through the Israeli government entering into commercial relations with private companies that have the expertise to build these facilities. These are both Israeli companies and international companies. For example, the first facility that was built in 2005 in Ashkelon was a partnership between the Israeli company called IDE, which is a desalination company, and a French company called Veolia. And they formed a consortium that entered into the agreement with the government. Environmental perspectives of desalination, it's very important to monitor the brine discharge from desalination into the Mediterranean Sea, because the Mediterranean Sea is a fragile ecosystem in its own right. We have very good monitoring of all of our facilities. Water quality samples are taken on a daily basis and reported to the Ministry of Environment every week to make sure that there are no long-term ecological impacts on the Mediterranean ecosystem. In terms of groundwater, that was the next question I see here. In addition to the Kinneret, our most important sources of fresh water are groundwater, and most significantly, it's the mountain aquifer system, as well as the coastal aquifer. But again, we are less and less reliant on these sources of water for our daily use, and more are managing these systems as buffers or reservoirs for when we really do need them. I'm just scrolling down. Next question is, I'm just reading quickly. Okay, if there is less need for water in the Kinneret, can we release this water to the Dead Sea? Well, theoretically, yes, because we're no longer reliant on that water as we once were. But the thinking as of now is that however much we would like to rehabilitate the Dead Sea, water is always going to be prioritized for human needs first. So even though we are pumping less from the Kinneret, it's still really important to maintain the Kinneret as a reservoir and to see if we need that water for future times. It's also economically much cheaper to pump water from the Kinneret than it is to produce water from the sea. So we're always going to prioritize water for people before we prioritize water for nature. That being said, I do think that we should be thinking about how to rehabilitate the Dead Sea and the lower Jordan River as well, and to try to see how to meet both the needs of people and the needs of nature as well. So what can be done to keep the Dead Sea disappearing? Well, I think I'm going to table that one, because that's a lecture in its own right. Okay, so the question is that I showed the amount of desalination in 2016 as being 628 MCM. The latest, it's more or less the same. I think we're just under 700 million cubic meters of water per year from desalination at the moment, which is close to 70% of our potable water needs in the domestic sector. Which water source is the most supply water with fresh water? Well, desalination is not fresh water, but it's the groundwater resources that are most significant. So after desalination, we are reliant on groundwater, and really the Kinneret is our last resort with respect to fresh water supply. Is there a concern about rising salinity along the coastline because of so much desalination? No. The Mediterranean Sea definitely is large enough to dilute the salts coming out of the desalination facilities, but it is important to continue to monitor, as I said earlier, because you could have local impacts around where the brine is being discharged that could affect fisheries, for example. So, so long as we have regular monitoring of how the brine is being discharged at the point of discharge, then managing that salinity actually is not too problematic. What priority, if any, is there saving the Dead Sea? Well, this is a real pet project for me, if I could use that term. Again, I don't want to go into too detail about this because maybe, Talia, we should have a webinar on the Dead Sea, but unfortunately, it's not a priority. The government does not really prioritize the Dead Sea, in my opinion, sufficiently. And we have to find ways to put the Dead Sea on the agenda to make this something. I think it's one of our largest environmental challenges for us in Israel, as it is for our Jordanian neighbors on the eastern shoreline as well. Is there any need to restore the level of the Sea of Galilee now? Like building a pipe to, okay, so there is a project that is being discussed at a very high level and will most likely be implemented in the next couple of years. Israel will build its 6th desalination facility near Akko in the north. This facility will provide desalinated water to the Galilee region, which at the moment is not being provided with desalinated water. And there will be a pipeline that will connect that desalination plant to the Sea of Galilee for 2 reasons. One, to help manage and maintain water levels in the Sea of Galilee. And 2, to ensure that there will always be enough water in the Sea of Galilee to provide water to Jordan. So Talia mentioned the peace treaty with Jordan. We are committed through that treaty to provide on average 50 million cubic meters of water per year to Jordan. That water comes from the Sea of Galilee. So we need to ensure that there will always be enough water to meet our own needs, to meet the needs of the lake, and to meet the needs of our commitments to Jordan. So that pipeline is part of the planned project for that facility that will be built in Akko.
Clive, somebody asked me about the $2 per cubic meter.
Yeah, I just also want to quickly say there are like 20 questions here, and I don't know if I'm going to get through all of them. I'm just simply scrolling down my chat. I don't know if there's a way to prioritize the questions.
No, 2 more questions, because in 2 minutes we're finished.
Well, Talia, I'm going to ask you to choose. So I can talk about, you want me to talk about the pricing? Okay, so the average price that we pay as citizens in Israel, so what I pay as a citizen in Israel is about $2 a cubic meter. Israel has what is called a block rate tariff. So we basically have different volumes and different prices for those volumes. The price for the first block is $2 a cubic meter, and most Israelis do not go beyond that. So pretty much you really have to be a very large water consumer to go beyond that. So most people in Israel, most of the public is paying on average $2 a cubic meter for water. There's a second and third block where the price can double and even triple, and that's mostly the water tariff for industry, for large water users. But the public is mostly paying $2, and $2 is a relatively high price for drinking water. Most countries around the world pay less. In the United States, of course, water pricing is very localized, so different places. And there probably are places in the United States that also pay $2, maybe even more. But $2 is calculated as close to the true cost of water. In other words, $2 is what covers the infrastructure costs to provide water. So the other part of that question is because nearly every water user in Israel is metered, we have very close to full cost recovery of the water. So we are able to cover cover the amount of water that is being paid for across the country, and then that money goes directly back into helping manage and improve the water infrastructure. Talia, one last question. What would you like me? I mean, I'm asking you to choose. I can't. Talia, take yourself off mute. Okay.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I'm saying just one short, that you can pick from the list that you have, because we need to close.
Okay, I know. Okay, I'll just talk about this one. Climate change as a threat to Israeli water supply. I don't think it's as much of a threat as it once was. And again, I think that goes back to desalination and wastewater reuse. So when I earlier said that Israel has disconnected, decoupled itself from nature, that's really you could look at it as an adaptation response to climate change. Because climate change is going to impact and is impacting the hydrological cycle globally. And this is why water supply from nature is becoming more and more unpredictable. So how do you protect yourself against that unpredictability? Israel is protecting itself from that unpredictability through managing its water supply and demand through technology, infrastructure development, innovation, and so on. Obviously, you don't put all your eggs in one basket. We will always have to rely on nature. The kineret and the groundwater will always be important for us. But as Tali said, you can never be complacent. However good the kineret is today, it won't be there tomorrow. And we need these infrastructure projects. We need the reservoirs. We need the infrastructure. We need the drills and so on. All of these projects that JNF is providing is essential and will remain essential in the future. So I think I'm going to stop unless there's anything else that is pressing from anybody to say.
Mark,
Okay, well, with that, thank you, Clive, and thank you, Tali. Tali, do you have anything else you want to wrap up with before I do?
Yeah, one more time, I would like to mention, because you're going to mention the rest, that the podcasts with the Clive, with Tzour and myself are available at jnf.org/IsraelCast. And you will mention other stuff that is available.
Yes.
Thank you.
So first, thank you very much to both of our distinguished speakers. Again, it was very informative and a wonderful presentation by both. We did have over, I think, 150 people ended up being on this call. So that's a very, we're very pleased with that. Obviously, these calls are interesting to people with those kind of numbers. And it will continue next week. Next week, it is changing to Tuesday because of Passover coming on Wednesday. So it'll be Tuesday, and we're going to have 3 experts, one of which you were hearing today, Dr. Lipchin. He will be again. Dr. Abraham Tene, who is a professor, and Gideon Dagan, also, both from Israel. And they will be discussing Israel's water solutions, the recycling, and the education and the water technologies and desalinization. So I have heard these people speak several times before. They are very interesting. I apologize if you can hear my dog barking in the background. So everybody, thank you again. Stay healthy and stay safe in these times. And we hope to see and hear from you all again next Tuesday. Thank you.
One more thing, if you want to read more and learn more about JNF's water initiatives, it is available at jnf.org/water. You can support our campaign, read more about it. Thank you very much all.
Thank you.